today happens to be the National Youth Day on the occasion of Swami Vivekanand's birth anniversary. His mission was to bring about a change through mobilization of the youth. You too have been referred to as the Swami Vivekanand of today by many media articles, since you work quite intensively with the young population, especially with the leading institutions of the country like IITs, IIMs, AIMS, etc. Sir, I would like to ask what you think is a major difference in youth engagement from Swami Vivekanand's time to today. Is it easier now, or is it more difficult, or are there the same challenges? I would request you to please throw some light on this.
You see, the youth is always in a peculiar condition. And the peculiar condition is that the body, in a short span of, let's say, 6-7 years, attains almost a sudden maturity. If you consider the lifespan of a human being, 75-80 years on an average, 6-7 years is almost sudden, right? And you are a very changed biological being at 18 compared to what you are at 12, right? It just happens. And you have attained biological maturity, which means you can do a lot of things that adults can, and also you have energy comparable to other more grown-up adults, let's say those who are 30-35 years old, right? And all that has just happened when you were passing through your formal schooling and college or university education, right? Suddenly you find yourself a grown-up adult. No, life has not yet given you too many years to gather experience from, but it has given you the energy to shake things up, the power to procreate, and the responsibility to build systems, engage with systems, earn for yourself, right? All these things have suddenly come to you. You think of the two important decisions that people make in their lives, which is choosing their education and career. That's the first part of the decisions. And the second one being engaging with another human being of the other gender, and possibly marrying. Both these things get done right when you are quite young, and you don't really know the world too much. So that's the condition of the youth. Having a lot of potential, having a lot of energy, but not having enough understanding. Your schooling, your college education, during which you are growing up, does not cater to your inner development needs. That is taken as a given. It is assumed that the person is growing up in a physical way, therefore the person is also gaining inner maturity parallelly, which is a huge assumption, which is an erroneous assumption. That does not just happen. So what happens is that all this energy that the youth has is driven not by the understanding of the youth, but by the random forces of social, cultural, biological conditioning that operate upon you. That was the situation 100 years back, 120, 130 years back, if you're talking of Swami Vivekanand's times. And that is also the condition today, and that will be the condition forever, because that's how biology shapes up the youth. Right? Puberty used to happen at a certain age. In Vivekanand's time, it happens at almost the same age even today. So in that respect, the youth was vulnerable then, and the youth is equally vulnerable today. In the blink of an eye, the kid who used to play at home is entrusted with the responsibility to earn, make life decisions, choose a career, choose a partner. And all that happens, I said, just so quickly. Has the youth been equipped decently, responsibly to take all those decisions? No, that does not happen. So instead of understanding, what we have is conditioning. What was the conditioning operating at the time of Swami Vivekananda? The conditioning was twofold. Biologically, in the physical sense, the youth of that time was not quite strong. And mentally, the youth had been conditioned to believe that life is all about weakness and misery and defeat and subjugation. The genius of that monk lies in challenging both these conditionings. He said, first of all, you need to be physically strong. If you are little and weak and sick all the time, then there is not much that life can offer you. He said, strength must be the first quality, and weakness must be considered as the foremost problem, even the first sin. Weakness must be considered extremely abhorrent. Any feeling of helplessness or subjugation has to be kept aside. So he said those things, but if you see what he was challenging, he was not really challenging weakness, he was challenging conditioning. It's just that in those times, conditioning expressed itself as weakness. If you look at the average height of a 20-year-old today, you take a sample, 100, 200 youngsters, all 20 years old, and you look at their average height and average weight, you'll find the average height a couple of inches more than the height that was there in 1890 or the year 1900, Swamiji's times. Similarly, weight. You all have gained in weight. The youth of that time was quite emaciated. And if you look at girls especially, the difference in height and weight might be even more significant. Now, I'm saying this from my hunch. You can corroborate the data from wherever it is available, if at all it is available. I think the data will validate what I'm saying. So there was a lot of weakness at that time, and poverty, and subjugation. India had simply been crushed and trampled over. And there was so much illiteracy. And the result was that the youth was in a state of complete lack of self-assuredness. Instead, what the youth had come to believe was that misery, defeat, weakness, surrender, meekness is the only and inevitable way of life. Just bow down. Bow down to life, bow down to oppressors, bow down to poverty, bow down to ignorance, lack of knowledge, bow down to all the random forces of situations that hit a human being. Swamiji said, no. That's not the truth. That's simply the way you are conditioned. Mind you, that's not the truth. That's simply the way you are conditioned. So, it is important to remember that the central work of Vivekanand was not really against just weakness or ignorance or whatever. It was against conditioning. It's just that conditioning expressed itself at that time as weakness and illiteracy and helplessness and ignorance, right? Now you tell me, as the youth of today, what does conditioning express itself as today? Because had Swamiji been alive today, he would not have conveyed the same message he did a century and a quarter ago. The message would have changed because the conditions have changed. See, the work of a spiritual revolutionary is to bring the truth to you. And what is the truth? Truth is not a concept. Truth is not a statement. Truth is not a principle to live by. Truth lies simply in getting rid of one's inner patterns. That which you have believed yourself to be, drop that. And what remains is the truth. Whatever you have become by chance, by ignorance, drop that, and what remains is the truth. So had he been around today, how would he have conveyed the message of truth? What has the youth of today become? Are we together? You see, his work lied in challenging what we have erroneously, falsely become. Year 1900, year 1890, that was the time when he was the most active. What had the youth become then? At that point, what was the condition of the youth? You remember conditioning. How had the youth of that time taken shape? What was the condition? What were they thinking? What did they look like? What was their belief system? Think of that. What were they saying? Let's say you meet someone from that time, right? 20 years old or 25. And what is that person saying? What is that person saying? Come on, please. First of all, how does he look? He or she. How does he look? Famished. And skinny. Because famished, hence skinny. And is he well read? What does he believe in? Superstitions. Wonderful. Lovely. When he looks at a white man, how does he feel? Inferior and afraid. Right? And what else? How does he, for example, look at other castes? Let's say he belongs to one of the so-called upper castes. How does he look at the so-called lower castes? Now this fellow himself is in tatters, but he is looking at a fellow human being, a fellow Indian, as untouchable, probably. Huh? How, if he is a male, how does he look at women? Lower, inferior beings. Right? And he is conditioned to believe all of that. Probably he is a flat earther. Quite probable, right? Does he know where America is? Quite possible he also looks at other communities with a lot of distaste. Right? How much geography or history or biology does he know? Not much. The literacy rates had plummeted to almost single digit levels in most parts of the country by that time. Such was the devastation, such was the havoc wreaked upon the education system, especially after 1857. People were not getting to learn, to read, to write. The existing system of education had been devastated. And no alternative, no mass-based alternative at least, had been created. So people were largely illiterate. So that's his situation. And when you look at him today, what do you say? Oh, he is so blinded by his beliefs. You know, when you look at him, you will say, a poor fellow. Inwardly, that fellow is very, very confident. He was so confident that in some way, he actually managed to obstruct Swami Vivekananda. One of the reasons he died so early was because he faced such stiff resistance, not from the Europeans or Americans, but from the Indian population itself. He did the best he could, and that was not really the age of technology. A lot of travel that he undertook was quite a burden on the body. Very painstakingly he travelled, sometimes on foot. He did not take care of his food, his health, his various diseases. And before he could be 40, he was gone. Think, who troubled him so much? Who troubled him so much that he had to depart? And he was a well-built man, strong. Pretty strongly built. And it's not as if he miraculously just chose to disappear or depart at that young age. He was brought down by ill health and disease. Who troubled him so much? Think of it. Who? And he's a strong man and he's a well-read man. I mean, well-read is an understatement. He's a champion author. And there is somebody who just pulverizes him to the ground. Who is this? That famished, ill-read, ill-bred, ill-fed fellow. He defeated Swamiji. Not in the final count, obviously, but at least temporarily. He kept on saying, if I just get 100 suitable young people, I'll change the face of India. He didn't get that many. It's debatable whether he got even 10 of them. You do not need to kill a man always directly. He's asking for something. He's betting his life on something. You devoid him of that which he wants so desperately, that which he loves with all his heart. He won't be able to live. Do you see this? It says that we never love anything that heartfully. So we do not know what a real lover goes through. But if you ever want something really worthy, something really beautiful, with all your life, with all your energy, and you don't get it, you just don't feel like living. The youth of that time deprived Swami Vivekanand of what he wanted from them. And how did the youth deprive him? By blindly believing in whatever they believed in, whatever their concepts were. Today you look at that fellow we just talked of and you say, oh, 5 feet 4 inches, can't even write properly. You ask him to just tell how many major rivers are there in North India, he might not know. Ask him where do smallpox and chickenpox come from? He will say divine curse. That kind of a fellow. But that fellow, who is most probably racist, casteist, sexist, ignorant, that kind of a fellow manages to obstruct the work of a giant like Swami Vivekananda. That is the power of conditioning. It is conditioning that the Swami was fighting against. It's always possible and easy, rather, to look at someone else, especially from some other age, and see very clearly that the fellow is conditioned. Right? For example, today, if that fellow, imagine him standing here. Imagine. Today that fellow tells you, women do not need to be educated. You won't even feel like countering him, right? Some of you would laugh at him, others won't even feel like laughing at him. You would simply want to look elsewhere at something that is more pleasant, more meaningful, more sensible. But that fellow is very, very confident. He's saying, but women, they are for the kitchen and taking care of the kids, and what do they have to do by studying, reading, educated? I mean, will they wear coats and pants and go out to work like men? Ha ha ha. He'll be very sure of himself. He'll be, catch that word, he'll be very sure of himself. That's what. When you are so sure of yourself, then you can defeat even the most beneficial, most benevolent power that stands in front of you to help you, to uplift you. Conditioning manifests itself in, come on, repeat the word, sureness. And what's the popular word for sureness? Confidence. That skinny fellow, if you send his blood to some pathology lab, he would be found deficient in 20 things. In fact, he would be found deficient in everything. He might even be found deficient in a few organs. The fellow does not have a liver. That kind of deficiency. But he is not deficient in confidence. Deficient in everything, but not in. And that's what troubled Swami Vivekananda so much. He actually laid down his life. It's just that when you are killed by a gun, then you can see the blood flowing. Or when you wear a crown of thorns, as Jesus did, again you can see the cruelty there, out there, in a very obvious way. Or you find Socrates being made to drink poison. You can see it. Your eyes can see that. So you know this is murder. But when a Vivekanand dies that way, you do not see the blood flowing, and you do not see the thorns, and you do not see the poison. You do not see a head being chopped off, because you do not see. So you say, oh well, he just died out of some sickness. He was diseased. No, he was not diseased. He was killed. What killed him? The headstrong confidence that we have. You could call them headstrong jugheads. Extremely confident of themselves. And what they were then confident of, today we laugh at. Correct? What he was confident of that time, today we laugh at all those things, don't we? Maybe someone else would laugh at the things that we are today confident of. And confidence continues to be a buzzword even today, especially in the youth. Does it not? You all like to be confident, and you all admire confident people. Look at your role models. Don't they all act very confident? The ego, to sustain itself, all ignorance to sustain itself, must act very, very confident. Now, fast forward to 2023. What are we confident of? What are we confident of? And the inner confidence that we have is very, very stubborn. Times change. The ego tendency does not change. All change is just superficial, apparent, external. Internally, human beings continue to be the way they always were. What are we confident of? Obviously, if Vivekanand comes here today, he will not tell us to be physically strong. Most of us are already reasonably strong, right? You have gyms. The nutrition that you take is more or less okay. All kinds of sports facilities are there, right within the campus. So he will not talk of nutrition. At that time, he was talking a lot about good food, and he would say, come on, leave your ignorance behind. Get up, go and play football. Today, he does not need to tell you to play football. You already play football. What will he need to address today? What are you confident of today? Hint. You will resist him every bit as much as that fellow from the last century. Nobody wants to accept a Swami Vivekanand. His lot, his fate is to be resisted. He was resisted then, he would be resisted even today. He was resisted by everybody, including the youth. Then it is the youth that would resist him even today. Now that's very counterintuitive, because we love to talk of Swami Vivekananda as a youth icon. Right? Swami Vivekanand, the favorite of the youth. Youth icon, youth icon. And here I am, asserting that were he to be here today, it is the youth that would resist him the most. Because the work of a spiritual revolutionary, of the knower of Vedant, and it is Vedant that Swamiji was most fond of. He worshipped Vedant, not any god. To him, Vedant was sacred. His work is to challenge the conditioning of the day. In that alone lies the worship of the truth. Challenge conditioning. What are we conditioned as? What are you conditioned to believe in? Tell me, please. His work would be equally difficult today. Beliefs have changed. The believer has not. The one who loves to live in beliefs has not changed. It's just that he has changed his beliefs. So there was one set of beliefs then. Be with me, come on. There is another set of beliefs now. But the tendency to live in beliefs has not changed. He'll have an equally tough task today with you guys. You will not Christian him as a youth icon. After he is gone, then another generation would. Not you. You would not like to listen to him. Listening to someone who brings the truth to you is always a difficult task. The nature of truth is that it cannot be pleasant, irrespective of how much you try to sweeten it or smoothen it. Are you getting it? Think of this. So many people would assemble to listen to him. When he returned from the States, a huge procession greeted him right at the port. But when he asked for just 100 people who could be his soldiers, he was denied. Beliefs are superstitions. Just that it is easy to call the other's superstition as superstition. Our own superstition we call as a sacred belief or holy culture or passion, right? In a non-religious, non-cultural context, your personal belief you will call as your passion, but even that is superstition. And when that is challenged, one does not like it. The superstitions of that time are quite evident. The fellow is, for example, saying that snakes live for 2000 years. Or that a certain tree turns into a beautiful lady every fortnight. And today you can laugh those things away. How about the superstitions of today? Have we tried to inquire the superstitions that we carry? Come on. Risk a guess at least. Can you watch me from there? Otherwise this seat is available. Come over to this side. I'll have to bend to look at you, and same with you. Yeah, what are the superstitions we carry? Please. Consume, consume, and consume. Consume. Come on. Have more. That's the purpose of life. Happiness is the purpose of life, and happiness is obtained through consumption. Happiness is the purpose of life, and happiness comes through consumption. And Swami Vivekanand will again have to fight this superstition till his last breath. And he'll again be defeated. We'll not let him win. Consume everything you can lay your hands on. Consume your own body, consume somebody else's body, consume all the resources the earth does not even have to offer. Consume the plants, the animals, the mountains, the trees, the rivers, the air. Consume just everything possible. Have it. We don't like to call it a superstition. We'll say, oh, but it's a choice. It's a way of life. It's not even a way of life. It's the purpose of life. That's what he would do today. What is a superstition? What is a superstition? Believing in something without having inquired till the last detail. Right? And when I talk of the last detail, do you know what I mean? The belief is something here, out here. This is. When you want to go to the last detail, you have to think of the believer. Who is the believer? You have to look into the fact of the belief, obviously. And then you have to go into the mind of the believer and ask, why does he have to stick to this concept or assumption? Why does he have to stick to it? And that's when the inquiry is complete. And if the inquiry is not complete, whatsoever you hold as true is not only belief but actually superstition. Superstition. And our education, the thing that we talked of right in the beginning, does not equip us to go into self-inquiry. We do not know why we think the way we do. We do not know why we desire the way we do. We all want so many things in life, but we do not know why we want something. And if you do not know why you want something, whatever you want will be perilous to you. Irrespective of what you want, it will hurt you. Are you getting it? Come on, come up with a few more superstitions. It's fun. Come on. Yes, technology and technical growth can offer you redemption from your suffering. Technology can only do what you want it to do. Technology is a slave. Right? Your imagination comes first, your desire comes first, and then comes the technology. Correct? To fulfill your desire, to materialize your imagination. That's what technology does. If your desire itself is a rotten thing, how can technology help you? Please tell me. Your desire is to kill the other. You come up with the most powerful fusion device possible. It's a state-of-the-art thing. The greatest hydrogen bomb ever made. Where is that coming from? Your rotten, hateful desire to kill the other. And why do you want to kill the other? Because he does not worship the same God as you do. because you want a piece of land and the other does not agree. So you want to kill him. Such an animalistic desire, right? But to fulfill this desire, what do you use? The latest, most modern, state-of-the-art technology. What can technology bring to you? If you are inwardly rotten, what can technology bring to you? Technology will simply become an expression of your inner diseased state. Right? What other superstitions? I hope we are capturing this. This is very important. Yes. See, wherever there is desire, there has to be a wait for tomorrow. What does a life based on desire mean? Work today based on your desire, and tomorrow you will have fruits of your action. So you'll have to necessarily live in tomorrow. And what does that entail? Something very dangerous. What that means is you cannot live in love. You cannot work in love. You cannot do something just because you love it. This quest for tomorrow means that all the value has been postponed to the future. Where does value lie? Where does value lie? In the desirous mind, where does value lie? In the future, because that's where the imagined fulfillment of desire is. No desire gets instantaneously fulfilled, right? What is the nature of desire? You desire something, then you work to attain it, and you attain it 2 days later. And 2 days later, you imagine that you will be fulfilled. It's just that 2 days later, there is something else. And you're never really fulfilled. But forget about the future. What does this continuous state of desire do to the quality of your existence, which is right now? It leaves you deprived, impoverished. You have nothing right now. Everything has been scheduled to the future. All the goodness, all the fun, all the joy has been marked to the future. So how are you right now? That nobody wants to talk of. Come on, become something. Now all becoming again lies in the... So how are you right now? Blank. Nothing. I have nothing. I have nothing. But nobody wants to call it as a superstition. You see, the usual superstitions have all been killed by science, mostly. Because they were objective superstitions. Right? Like, you must not take food at the time of the lunar eclipse. Now that's an objective superstition. It has something to do with objects. Which objects are we talking of? The moon, the earth, and the food. All these three are objects. Now science will defeat all these superstitions because science is very well equipped to deal with objects. So all the objective superstitions are gone. Swamiji would be very happy. But then he will look at the other side, the subjective side, and his face will turn pale. All the superstitions are now subjective. And how do you defeat them? Objective superstitions can be defeated. For example, it was superstition that, let's say, the Nazi blood is superior to and purer compared to the other races. How was this defeated? You just take blood samples and compare, and science has defeated that, right? So we kept talking of the pure Aryan blood, and nobody talks of that today. There's nothing called the pure Aryan blood. You could be an Aryan, a non-Aryan, you could be anybody. Blood is blood. Science defeated that. But if you say, in your mind, for example, that getting settled quickly or getting retired quickly is the purpose of life, how does science defeat that? Tell me. Science has no answer there. And that's the superstition of today. Hustle. Earn quick bucks by doing any damn rotten thing. And then retire at 35. And if you don't feel like doing that thing exactly because it is so rotten it cannot be done, then listen to some huge money bag industrialist, capitalist, influencer or motivator and push yourself back to that same rotten job so that you may retire early. Science has no answer to this kind of superstition. Because it is, come on, be with me. Subjective. Science cannot deal with subjective things. You fall in love with a pig. Science cannot correct you. All that science can tell you that it is a pig. You still say it's my subjective decision to roll in the shit with the pig. The science will remain silent. What can science do now? Science can at max tell you what all kinds of bacteria are present in that filth. Beyond that, science can't do much. It's a subjective thing. And the superstitions today are all subjective. How do you fight that? Swami Vivekanand is saying the challenges of the last century were actually easier to deal with. At this moment, the challenges are almost impossible to tackle. You could demonstrate to someone that his belief is a mere superstition. But how do you demonstrate that your subjective concepts, your way of life, your principles, these are all just worthless, false, baseless? How do you demonstrate that? It's very difficult. And the youth has been greatly indoctrinated today, especially in a country like India, because it's a young country. So if you can capture the youth, you have captured everything. You have also captured the future, right? The ones who are young today will be the earners of tomorrow. Catch them young. That's how they say. Catch them young. And you have been indoctrinated. That which you think of as normal is not at all normal. To that fellow, see, he's still standing here. Do you see him? To that fellow, it is very normal to think that the sun goes round the earth. And he says, but I see that happening every day. Rises this side, sets that side. The sun obviously goes round the earth. It's a very normal thing. Don't you have common sense? Come on. When you will dispute what he says, what will he say? Can't you see the obvious? It's commonsensical. The sun goes round the earth. Think of what all is normal and obvious and commonsensical to you. Please do that. It is that which you take as common sense that is defeating you. That is a nemesis. That is killing you. That which you think of as obvious and certain and feel very assured of. So assured of that you don't even want to question it. That's what is defeating you. Am I making sense, or is it? I'll do my B.Tech. And 3 roads arise from there. Or maybe 4 or 5 max. A job, MS, MBA. Or I go and fall into the lap of my family and say I'll be part of the family business. Huh? That's all? That's all? Startups, fine. How do you know that all this is not a superstition? Come on, please. How do you know? Now, don't dismiss it as being obviously an insane question to ask. You all are very sane people. For the next hour, just bear being a little insane with me. How do you know that this is not a superstition to choose just one among these 4 or 5 options? Please tell me. You are not a previous one. You are a current one. The previous ones are all dead. And they didn't live exactly glorious lives. Why do you want to emulate them? The friend we have standing here is also a previous one. Want to be like him? Why not? If the old is to be emulated, let's go for the older one. And why stop at the older? Let's go for the oldest one. The one who is in the cave, in the jungle, sitting on the treetop and chasing monkeys from there. Why not copy that one? Something to visit.
So we live in a country like India, where the daily need of a person is to have a piece of bread and butter daily. So if you do not choose any of the 4 paths and try to think that I'll speculate today and maybe after 2 to 3 days I will go on to some other thing that will give me bread and butter, that is not how the life works. You can't stay impoverished for say more than 4 to 5 days.
So how do you know?
So
How do you know?
Exactly.
Just a question.
Yes, sir.
A superstition involves something that you have not inquired into. How do you know that bread and butter is possible only via these 4 or 5 paths? How do you know? What's the basis? How much have you seen the world? How much have you inquired? How much knowledge, experience do you have? At this young age, how do you feel so convinced that unless you follow the well-trodden path, you won't even physically survive? We are talking of starvation, as extreme as that.
Yes, sir, I would like to counter that. Sir, see, the thing is that when you're talking about living in this world, it is not only that a person as a whole is living. It is not Mahabharata going on that Lord Krishna can pause the time and everything will, and he can say any sermon and then that can be believed, or he can do any action and ask other people like for example, when this Karan was killed, the brother of Arjun, stepbrother of Arjun.
Leave all that aside because all that is not fact.
Fine, sure,
So
we'll
what's
leave
the
it.
thing?
We'll leave that. Sir, so whatever happens in this world is a mutual thing, a mutual action by you and the surrounding, how it reacts to you. So the thing is that if you are not doing some work, or maybe you're thinking that there's some other path which may lead you to some work, like you said that there are only 4 options after engineering, 4 to 5 options maybe. So in that way, you would be I think that would be correctly the way to think as it is, because if you do not work into a particular direction, or if you are trying to choose a new path, it's most probable that the surrounding people would not react to you in the same way.
How do you know?
So that's a known fact.
How do you know? Again, that argument of obviousness. How do you know?
Very obvious. Okay, fine. I'll give you an example.
No. My question is, how do you know?
Yeah. I'll give you an example.
The question is, how do you know? Not give me an example. How do you know? It's an epistemological question. How do you know?
Sir, can you speak? Sir, you give podcast on YouTube. Is it possible for you to say something against the Prime Minister of India today in your podcast?
I actively say when I need to.
Sir, but
Even the Prime Minister probably knows that.
Sir, but that would lead you into trouble.
Probably
Most
it already
certainly will.
does, but fine.
Sir,
It's okay.
So, sir?
It's a subjective thing, right?
So, exactly.
My question was, how do you know? Get into that. How do you know that you'll starve if you do not take these 4-5 paths?
Sir, because it is scientifically proven.
Scientifically proven. Which journal, which research paper, which lab, which scientist?
So, that I do not know exactly, but...
Then how do you know?
Sir, because that is what we have been taught in our earliest classes. When
In your
we are in
classes?
school.
Which book?
Sir, textbooks.
Which particular syllabus? Which board do you come from?
Sir, ICSE.
Any other person from ICSE here? By the way, I too am an ICSE product. Did you have any book that told you that you will starve if you do not follow any of these 4 paths? Any course, any book? How do you know?
Sir, you need money to survive, right?
How do you know that you won't have money outside these 4-5 paths?
So, you don't have time to speculate over that.
Please, Mike, quick.
It's just that we have seen other famous people who are at a good position right now, and we know that they have taken those paths. So we try to replicate their path, saying that if we take the path, we will also reach at where they are right now.
Okay. How do you know wherever they are actually feeling okay? How do you know?
We don't know that, but because of the fame, the popularity, the money that they have,
Somebody is famous.
Yeah.
Look at the logic, please. We are saying somebody is famous, so I want to be like him. Now, anybody can be famous for whatever reason, good, bad, whatever. You want to be like somebody who is famous, but how do you know that his own position is something that would give you whatever you want, peace, fulfillment, joy, fun, whatever? How do you know?
But what if something you want is being famous itself? It's not.
How do you know being famous will give you something that you would really enjoy? How do you know? You can be famous overnight. You can be famous tomorrow morning, right? It's quite possible in the age of social media. And you can actually plan it out. You want to be famous, you can be famous before the session ends. And all that happens. We know how things go viral and what all things go viral. How do you know being famous will bring to you something that would please you? How do you know?
We don't know it until we reach that path. Right.
How have you chosen a destination without knowing anything about the destination? How have you can even choose, but how have you simply committed yourself to that one thing as obvious and the right thing and the purpose of life? How have you done that?
Our belief. Because it's our belief, like
That's what. It's just blind belief. That's what he was fighting. Blind belief. One of the beliefs of those times was that the white man is made to rule. And if you challenge that belief, you will have a hard time, not among the white ones, but actually more among the brown ones. How do you know that you're not living in similar beliefs today? Similar in the sense of the believer remaining to be the same. The beliefs have obviously changed. How do you know anything you believe in is of any value? And it's not impossible to test things out. Inquiry is possible. And it's not as if it takes an entire life to inquire. You have a lot of time. A lot of things that we believe in would simply fall to pieces if we sincerely inquire even for a couple of hours or a couple of days. It is possible. We don't even Google properly. Come on. Look at most of the stuff that is circulated on WhatsApp, etc. Have those people even Googled for the facts? Is it so impossible to know that what you are believing in is just hogwash? You want to be like someone. Have you even bothered to look at the facts of that person's life? Obviously, you cannot enter his kitchen or bedroom and look for first-hand information. But have you even bothered to glean through the publicly available information? Have you? How then have you accepted that person as your role model? Asking you, please. Son, how do you know?
So,
That question has still not been answered. Still not been answered.
so the human brain works in the way the previous experiences have taught to him to be like. Sir, in that way, sir, if you could say that maybe 150 years ago Swami Vivekanand believed in a certain kind of a ideology.
No, he didn't believe in any ideology.
No, I mean certain principles that
No, he didn't believe in principles.
So you said right now
No, I didn't.
So that the stubborn man at that time was not
The stubborn man had principles. Swamiji didn't have principles. He was a destroyer of principles.
So but you eventually, if you are destroying some principle, you are entrusting
How do
some.
you know that destruction of principle is another principle? How do you know? Why do you come to such quick inferences?
Sir, I think that's really the problem is we see what others are telling us. We do not go to the last details about everything. So that's what I think superstition was, is and will remain.
Right. How now? What to do about it?
I don't really know what we can do about
But
it.
you're already doing something about it. By acknowledging that that is the biological tendency of this animalistic brain.
I think the first step itself is acknowledging the problem.
Acknowledgement. Yes, that's the first step. Acknowledge that beliefs come quick and cheap. And they are most likely to be not only false, but very, very dangerous. They'll consume your entire life. They'll consume your entire life. You could even say a man is nothing but his bundle of beliefs. You have to be very, very careful the bundle that you are carrying. That does not mean there are good bundles and bad bundles. All bundles are just bad, just as there are no good diseases.
That's what I really think.
Yes, wonderful.